Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much to the Imam, Dr. Rashid Omar, for inviting me and allowing me the opportunity to be able to address you all on such an auspicious occasion. I would have preferred, obviously, to have been able to address you in person, just so that we are able to connect, share space, share time. Unfortunately, due to the times that we live under, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, I am unable to be with you in person. But I do hope that in the not too distant future, that we will be able to do this again, we'll be able to do this correctly, as it should be. But nonetheless, I am happy to be here and to be addressing you on a topic that is very much close to my heart. On Wednesday this week, the world stopped to mark World Anti-Corruption Day. And then a day later, which was yesterday, we celebrated International Human Rights Day. I was a bit conflicted, as I am, I think, to a large extent about these things. Because how can we celebrate international human rights when there are so many human wrongs that continue to be perpetrated, to be perpetuated in our societies? And I don't think that at the moment there's any human wrong that is bigger than the issue of corruption in our country. Now, on Wednesday, as a journalist working in South Africa, I was very disheartened when I got to listen to our new Auditor General paint a picture of just how badly our money, me and you, the taxpayer of South Africa, our money has been spent by government to fight this pandemic that we live under. You know, I recall the Auditor General saying something along the lines of, even though they are conducting these audits in real time, that means 60, 90 days, they are still finding that in some government departments, they can't get hold of the actual documentation, the paper trail for how the money was actually spent. That's within days of the transaction actually taking place. And yet already the paper trail for how that money is gone, how that money is spent is gone. So that means that that money is probably gone, never spent where it was meant to be spent. Human corruption is a human wrong that continues to deny us who we are meant to be. In the space of our fight against this deadly pandemic, corruption is pervasive, stealing from us, stealing from the very same people that are meant to help us fight this thing. The very same people that are meant to keep us alive. We are stealing from them personal protective equipment. And for what? To be able to drive a Ferrari? Corruption is taking away our right to fulfill our God-given potential, to be the individuals, to be the humans that God had intended us to be. Now, under apartheid, corruption was as similarly as pervasive. It was even worse to some extent because it was legislated for. It meant that I, as a black child, was only ever meant to work in the garden of a white South African because I happened to be born black. It wasn't right, but to some extent you can understand it because the people who were advancing those policies, they didn't know better. So we couldn't really think much about what they were doing. But when those very same acts of corruption are perpetrated against us by our very same people, by people who look like us, by people who talk like us, by people who went to the same schools as us, by people who live in the same neighborhoods as us, by our own brothers, by our own sisters, then that level of corruption becomes something else. It becomes a human wrong that we have to rid ourselves of. Because while it is still here, while it is as pervasive as it is, we can never truly celebrate our human rights because there is this thing among us that continues to inhibit us from being who we were meant to be. So, in terms of COVID-19, corruption is in essence killing us. Now, I'm sure many of you would know by now that my father, Fort Calata, was a young political activist from Cradock in the Eastern Cape that was killed alongside three of his comrades, Matthew Koniwe, Sparom Konto, and Sicelo Mhlauli. They were brutally killed by these apartheid security forces. And the four of them became known as the Cradock Four. Now I, as the son of Fort, with my family's support, have been fighting this government for justice. We've had to fight our very own government for justice because we are of the firm opinion that the justice system and the Justice Department has long been infiltrated by members of the old regime, and they have corrupted that system. They have corrupted that department. And their corruption now is denying us justice that is due to us. Our family has been waiting for 36 years. But what about the family of Imam Harun? They've been waiting for over 50 years for justice. Justice that is due to them because they lost a loved one in an unnatural and brutal manner. Corruption takes from us, whether that be in the form of personal protective equipment to protect the nurses and the doctors that are meant to keep us alive and well from COVID-19. Or it takes from us in the sphere of justice, where it's meant to serve us, where it's meant to soothe our wounds, in the form of justice, in the form of restoration. Corruption also takes of us in the space of education. Because just this week, we've been hearing how there were 2 exam papers that were leaked. Therefore, matriculants will have to rewrite 2 exams. And all because of corruption. Because there was a young man working for a company that was meant to print exam papers that decided that he will make a quick buck by taking pictures of these exam papers and then selling whatever he has. So corruption is an all-invasive problem, societal problem, that hampers us from moving forward, that hampers us from becoming the people that we are meant to be. And we're so much more than that. I know that we are so much more because there are people who were prepared and who did lay down their lives for us to enjoy the democracy that we do today, for us to be free, to chase our dreams, to chase our potential. Someone like Imam Harun laid down their life. They gave the best of themselves, which means that we owe them the best of ourselves. To guarantee the fact that their lives were not lost in vain. So we need to fight corruption and injustice wherever we find it. We need to stand tall, we need to be brave, and we need to remember that we walk in the footsteps of giants. People who were not afraid to sacrifice themselves for us. Therefore, when we see corruption in any form taking place in our society, I urge you to please use your voice to fight it. Because By keeping quiet, you are becoming, or you are, becoming part of the problem. But by standing up and speaking out, you become part of the solution. Because we need men, women, young and old, black and white, to come together in defense of our country. Because we know that we can not be in a position to celebrate our human rights and count our blessings when all of these human wrongs are taking place against us. There were crimes committed against our humanity. And we can no longer allow for those very same crimes to continue to be perpetrated against us. We are so much more than that. Corruption is not who we are. We are not a corrupt people. Not when we have giants such as the Imam, such as Steve Biko, such as Chris Hani, such as Anton Franz, Ashley Creel. Not when we have giants like those to lead us. Their spirit guiding us. So I beg of you today to please raise your voice in opposition to any form of corruption in any sphere of our lives. For us to be able to fully embrace and to celebrate our human rights, we must fix the human wrongs. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to me. And I pray, brothers, that we will be able to see each other, to hug each other, to be able to connect with one another very soon. Once again, my greatest gratitude to the Imam, Dr. Rashid Omar, for this opportunity to address you all today. And I thank you for listening to me. Shukran.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the dispenser of grace. Ya Rabbal Alameen, O Lord of everything that exists, we are grateful and thankful that you have blessed our country, South Africa, with rich human and natural resources. Ya Rabb al-Maghfirah, O Lord of forgiveness and mercy, we are deeply sorry and remorseful for the wrong use of all of your gifts and blessings through acts of injustice and corruption. Ya Rabb al-Mustada'afeen, O Lord of the oppressed and the marginalized, we are mindful of the harm and the suffering this is inflicting on many of the people of our country who are hungry. They lack the basic necessities to live a life of dignity and are unemployed and defenseless. Ya Rabb al-Shifa, O Lord of healing, help us to heal our souls from greed and avarice, and to heal our nation from the scourge of corruption. Ya Rabb al-Rizq, O provider of sustenance, grant us the will and capacity to use our country's resources for the well-being of all of its citizens. Ya Rabb al-Qist, O Lord of compassionate justice, raise up for us just leaders and caring citizens who will lead our country to the path of peace, prosperity, and loving kindness. Nas'aluka bi asma'ika al-husna, and we ask this in all of your holy and beautiful names. Rabbun Nas wa Rabbul Alameen, Lord of all cultures and of all humankind. Allahumma Ameen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب